This video is a walkthrough of the LGBF public dashboard. We will show you how to use it, navigate and describe the type of analysis you will find, and how to interpret them. We have marked this video with timestamps to allow you to quickly go to the section or page you are interested in. The dashboard opens on the landing page, where you can find 5 items: a National Overview button, a What is Happening in My Council button. The Metadata button will take you to the Metadata section of the dashboard, where you can find more information about the indicators, including the LGBF. About this resource takes you to a Frequently Asked Questions page, where you can find additional information about the LGBF and this dashboard specifically. Lastly, you can also click on the picture of the LGBF report. Doing this will take you out of the dashboard and to the full report on the Improvement Service website. You can use these buttons to navigate to the section you are interested in. Alternatively, you can also use the menu in the bottom left corner of the screen to navigate directly to a specific page. We will start by looking at the National Overview section. When clicking on the National Overview button, 2 more buttons appear. They will allow you to look at the LGBF data either by indicator or to look at the expenditure trends. Data in these sections is aggregated to provide a national picture of the performance of local government in Scotland. We will start by clicking on the By Indicator button. This section contains 3 tabs: National Trends, Local Variation and Data Table, which can be accessed using the orange buttons. Indicators can be selected using the 2 filters on top of the page. For example, we want to look at the cost of planning and building standards per planning application, which is an economic development indicator. First, we select the service area, economic development, and then we select the indicator we're interested in. In our case, cost of planning and building standards per planning application. This page contains 4 visuals. On the left, we find a line chart that displays data over time for this indicator at Scotland level. The same data can also be found in the data table underneath. On the right, we find another chart that contains 2 lines, one for the numerator and one for the denominator, that are used to calculate the indicator. Note that not all indicators will have data here. By placing the mouse over the lines, a tooltip will display the values as well as the numerator and the denominator titles. You can also highlight an individual line by clicking on the legend, as shown. Underneath this visual, there is a text box that contains a narrative about the indicator and provides some context behind the trends. The second displays information on the dispersion and the variation between councils on this given indicator. There are 3 elements on this page. The first one in the top left is a bar chart that shows all 32 local authorities' performances for the last 3 years, as well as the value for Scotland in the most recent year. On the right is a line chart that displays the family group's average values over time. Councils are split into family groups based on their levels of deprivation or rurality. This visual allows us to look at the effects of deprivation or rurality on the indicator. Most visuals in the dashboard are responsive to cross-filtering. This means you can filter a visual by clicking on another one. For example, here we will click on Urban in the legend of the line chart. It will filter the bar chart to only highlight the 8 authorities that are into the urban family group. In the lower half of the page, there are 2 boxes that contain additional information about dispersion. The left box contains information on the change since base year, i.e. the first year where data was available for the selected indicator, while the right box contains the same information, but only since the previous year. For example, here we can see that the average cost per planning application has increased by 20.2% on average between 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023. But this increase is not universal, and change range from -16.9% to +54.3%. 29 councils have seen their costs increase, while 3 have seen their costs decrease in the last year. The third tab is Data tab. As the name suggests, it contains tables that display all the data for all authorities and all years. The table on the left displays the change in percent between the base year and the current year. We will click on the Back button to go back to the landing page. We are now going to look at the Expenditure Trends section, which contains data on the major areas of local government expenditure. All data presented here is aggregated from all the 32 local authorities. Again, this page contains 3 tabs that can be accessed using the orange buttons at the top: Expenditure Pattern, Change Over Time, and Data Table. The first tab contains a unique bar chart showing how local government expenditure patterns have evolved over time. It is important to note that all figures are presented in thousands of pounds and that not all local government spend is captured in this analysis. By mousing over an area, you can see the actual expenditure for this service area. For example, here we can see that the total spend on education services by local authorities is £6.3 billion in 2022 to 2023. We can also see that this is a major area of expenditure. The next tab, Change Over Time, is comprised of 2 visuals. On the left side is a bar chart that shows the change in expenditure expressed as a percentage between the base year 2010 to 2011 by default and the current year. The buttons under the graph allow us to change the comparator to the previous year. In this example, we are now looking at the percentage change between 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023. The index graph on the right shows how expenditure has changed across the different service areas over the 2010 to 2023 period, using 2010 to 2011 as a base. The figure for each year is the difference in the percentage from the base year. For example, education in 2022 to 2023 is 121. Which means that expenditure on education services is 21% higher in 2022 to 2023 than it was in 2010 to 2011. These graphs also allow for cross-filtering and drilling down. Clicking on a service area in the left side graph will filter the line chart. The bar chart also offers the possibility to drill down, to allow users to look at the underlying sub-services that make up the aggregated figure. We do this by clicking on the split arrow on the top right corner of the visual as shown. We can drill upwards using the up arrow. Finally, we can also change the base year used to calculate the percentage change. By using Ctrl+ click on the right side x-axis, we can select the base and last years to calculate the percentage change. For example, we are going to select 2019 to 2020, 2020 to 21, and 2021 to 2022. As we can see, the bar chart updates and a new bar appears. By mousing over, the tooltip tells us that the percentage change for the highlighted period is -4.3 for planning compared to -26.1 over the entire period. The third tab is a data table that displays the total expenditure by service and sub-service areas, as well as the total general fund at the bottom. Should you require additional information on the page, you can also click on This Page button, located on the top right corner of the screen. This will open a pop-up that contains some additional information about the analysis shown and how to interpret them. We will now click on the Home button to go back to the landing page. We are now going to look at what is happening in my council area section of the dashboard. These pages present data at a local authority level, and the first thing we can see when we click on the button is that a local authority filter appears. There are also 4 buttons: by indicator, by service area, expenditure trends, and performance overview. We are going to click first on the By Indicator button. The page we land on is similar to the one we've seen previously for the Scotland data. We have 3 tabs, namely Indicator Data, Family Group and Relative Position, as well as 3 filters on the top of the page, one for the service area, one for the indicator, and one for the local authority. In this example, we're going to look at a different indicator, so we're going to click on Children's Services and select Cost per Primary School Pupil. We are looking at Aberdeen City for this example. There are 4 visuals on this page and a few additional buttons. The first graph on the top left corner is a line graph that displays indicators data over time. There are 3 lines, one for the selected local authority and 2 comparators. The local authority line is always the solid orange line, the family group average is a dotted blue line, and Scotland is a dashed black line. These lines are consistent throughout the dashboard. Underneath this graph is a data table that contains the same data. So in this example, we are currently looking at Aberdeen City data, Aberdeen City's family group, and Scotland. Next to it we find a percentage change table with the first column displaying the change from base year to the current year, 2010 to 2011 to 2022 to 2023 in our example, and the second column displaying change in the last year, so the change between 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023. As an example here, we see that the cost per primary school pupil has decreased by 1.2% between 2011 to 22-23 for Aberdeen City Council, while it has increased by 6.4% on average for the councils in the same family group and 8.5% for Scotland as a whole. On the left you will find another line chart that displays information on numerator and denominator used to calculate the indicator. Again, by placing our mouse over, we will see some additional information such as the title of the numerator and the denominator. Here, for example, the numerator is the gross expenditure on primary education and the denominator is the number of pupils in primary. We can also view numerator and denominator data in the data table by clicking on the buttons underneath. This will change the data displayed in the table as well as the percentage change table next to it. Note that when looking at numerator and denominator data, the Scotland row displays an average of 32 local authorities, not a sum, to allow for comparison. The next tab, Family Group, which contains a single line graph that displays indicator values for the council we have selected, in our case Aberdeen City Council, and the 7 other councils that sit within the family group. We can highlight a council by clicking on its name in the legend. The third tab is Relative Position. This shows how the relative position of the selected council has changed over time on the indicator. This analysis compares the performance of a council with the performance of all the councils. We can see that the position of Aberdeen City Council has increased throughout the years on this indicator, meaning that their cost per primary school pupil has gone down. It is important to remember that, though this is a useful metric, it only tells part of the overall picture and therefore should not be used in isolation. A council can improve its position relative to others while actually performing worse. The ranking order used here has been proposed by councils as being the order which is of most use to them for each measure, but we recognise that these are not always true for all councils, as councils give different priority to different measures depending on their own local context and strategic priorities. As an example, not all councils will be aiming to reduce costs in an area, as it may be an area of investment. On the right is a table that displays the position for all councils and for all years. We will click on the back button to go back to the landing page. If we want to see the detailed information about any indicator, we can click on the Metadata button on the menu at the top. This will take us to the Metadata page, which can also be accessed directly from the landing page of the dashboard. As you can see, the filters we've applied before still apply here, and the information displayed relates to the indicator we were looking at. We can also select another indicator from the filters on the top of the page. The metadata page displays the following information. It tells us what the source is for the indicator, but also the numerator and the denominator that are used if relevant. The two blue buttons at the bottom are links to the data source. For example, if we click on the numerator source button, it takes us to the Local Government Finance Statistics Publications page, which is used as a source for this indicator. Information about the frequency of publication, the reporting period, if an indicator refers to a calendar, a financial year or an academic year, the year used as a base year and the most recent year are also displayed here. On the right side is a table that contains additional information about how the indicator is constructed or calculated and flags up any potential issues with the data that users should be aware of when interpreting the data. We will now click on the Home button to go back to the home page. We are now going to explore the By Service Area section of the dashboard. This section allows us to look at multiple related indicators side by side. All LGBF indicators are grouped by service area, which you can select by using the filters at the top of the page. Here, for example, we are looking at economic development indicators. The local authority displayed can be changed using the filter on the left-hand side. As before, local authorities data is displayed as an orange line. It is displayed alongside the Council's Family Group average, which is the blue line, and the Scotland value, black line. Let us now look at a different service area, education for example. Note that children's services indicators have been split in 3 areas. We are going to click on Senior Phase Education. As we can see here, some of these graphs have a grey vertical line in the middle. This represents a change in the methodology used to collect data for this indicator, in this case due to the change in methodology during the COVID pandemic. It's a warning for users, meaning that data may not be directly compatible with previous years. We are going to click on the Home to get back to the home page. The next section is the Expenditure Trends. As you can see, the page is similar to the other Expenditure Trends page under the National Overview section, the only difference being the addition of a local authority filter on the left of the page. All the visuals now display expenditure trend at local authority level. Again, all financial data is displayed in thousands of pounds. All features available in the Scotland page are available here. We are now going to click on the Home button to go back to the landing page. The next section we will look at is the Performance Overview. This section is made of 2 different analyses. For both of these analyses, LGBF indicators have been grouped either by service area or by category. Each indicator belongs to one service area and one category. Categories are cost, satisfaction and performance. The overall graph includes all the indicators currently present in the framework. The first analysis, which sits under the Council Improvement tab, compares the selected council's performance on a basket of indicators between the base year, i.e. the first year when data was available, and the current year. Each of these total graphs show the proportion of indicators within the basket that have improved, deteriorated, or stayed the same across the period. Performance has stayed the same if the change is plus or minus 0.5% between base and current years. Clicking on the Change in Most Recent Year button at the bottom will change the base year used for comparison to the previous year. At the time of this video, change from base year will compare performance between 2010 to 2011 and 2022 to 2023, and change in the most recent year will look at the change between 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023. The left side menu allows the change to local authority displayed. Underneath this menu is another button, By Service Area. When we click on this button, we can look at the same analysis but from a different angle. This time, all 32 local authorities are displayed at once, and the filter on the left allows us to pick the service area or the category we want to display. Here, for example, we'll click on Cost Indicators. We're then looking at the performance of each local authority on the 20 indicators that sit under the Cost Indicators category. So we're now going to look at the second analysis in the Performance Overview section. We're going to click on Relative Position Over Time button on the top. As you can see, the layout of this page is identical to the previous one. This analysis returns for each basket of indicator the proportion of indicators where the selected local authority was ranked between 1 and 16 for both the base year and the most recent year. These graphs show how the selected council's performance has improved comparatively to other councils. Just like the previous analysis, we can use the button under the local authorities list to change the view and look at all authorities side by side as shown. We're now going to click on the Home button to go back to the landing page. The last page we'll look at today is about this resource. On this page, you can find answers to some frequently asked questions about the LGBF in general and this dashboard specifically. For example, by clicking on What are family groups, you can learn more about how we compare councils and what the family groups are made of. We also display information about the deflators we use to calculate real-term financial data. Finally, if you want to contact us for any questions, you can use the Useful Links section. We look forward to hearing from you.